Today, you can create your own large reversible project from start to finish, so you can learn how to knit, practice basic knitting skills, learn new skills, and make a placemat you can use. I've created this series of standalone videos so you can learn the ABCs of knitting, and especially reversible knitting. All you need is cotton yarn size 4 in any color you like, a pair of 4.5mm knitting needles, and a 4.5mm crochet hook. A large eyed needle will be used to work in the ends. I'll demonstrate each step clearly and slowly, so let's get started.
The cast-on I've chosen for this project is the crochet cast-on. I prefer to avoid a slip knot, but you can use one to anchor the first stitch if you like. Instead, I like to turn the crochet hook under in a clockwise motion, so the short end is over the working yarn. I'll do that again. Lay the knitting needle parallel to the crochet hook over the working yarn. Wrap the yarn over both needles. Pull the working yarn through with the crochet hook. The first stitch is always the trickiest. Let's do that again. Wrap the yarn over the needle, pull the yarn through the loop. You can make your project any size you want. I'll make a smaller swatch first to practice the stitch pattern and estimate how many stitches I need for a full placemat. For this project pattern, you'll need an odd number of stitches plus 4 stitches for the selvedges. Continue in this way until you have 18 stitches on the knitting needle. Placemats can vary in size from 30 centimeters by 36 centimeters to 30 by 40, or even a square one, 40 by 40. So the exact gauge of your project is not critical. If you plan on making a set of placemats, make sure to take note of how many stitches you use. Continue in this way until you have 18 stitches on the knitting needle. The 19th stitch is the one on the crochet hook, with yarn in front. We'll start with an easier granite stitch to get a rhythm. Set up the working yarn and tension. The simpler, the better. I'm a continental knitter, so I hold my yarn like this. Try to set up your yarn consistently at first until it feels more familiar. To get a nice selvedge, we'll slip the first stitch. With the yarn in front, insert the right-hand needle under the yarn and into the first stitch from the right. Transfer the stitch to the right needle and move the yarn to the back of the work again. The first row is a knit across. Insert the right needle into the first stitch from the left. Yarn up from the left and over the right needle. Pick the yarn out through the old stitch and push the right needle through. Move the right needle to the right and let the old stitch drop off. Let's do that again. Needle in from the left, yarn up and over, pick out the yarn, push the needle through and drop the old stitch off the left needle. Work each stitch the same for all the stitches. Turn your work. For the next row, we'll work 2 stitches for the selvedge by slipping the first stitch purlwise with yarn in front like before and knitting the next stitch. The stitch pattern for this row is alternating knits and purls. So, yarn in the back and knit a stitch. To purl, move the yarn to the front. Insert the needle from the right under the yarn. Now wrap the yarn around the right needle from the front over the needle to the back. I find it helps to hold the yarn in place by pushing my left forefinger down the shaft of the right needle. Now push the yarn from the front to the back and push the needle through the new stitch. You can hold the new stitch on the right needle with your right forefinger and slide the old stitch off the left needle. Move the yarn to the back and knit the next stitch. To work another purl, move the yarn to the front. Right needle in from the right, yarn up and over to the back of the needle, push the yarn through the old stitch and push the needle through the new stitch and slide the old stitch off. Continue to alternate knit stitches and purl stitches until the last 3 stitches. Notice that all the stitches are mounted on the needles in the same way, with the stitches opening to the left. Knit the next stitch to make the stitch pattern symmetrical, and knit the last 2 stitches for the selvedge, so 3 in a row. Before you turn your work, notice the alternating purl bumps right under your needle. After you turn your work, you can see the alternating knits and purls, and you can also see the V-shaped knit stitches on the row below. The next row is purl. First work the selvedge. Slip the first stitch purlwise with yarn in front, and knit the next stitch. Now move the yarn to the front and purl across to the last 2 stitches. Knit the 2 selvedge stitches and turn your work. If you're brand new to knitting, you can continue to work the fundamental granite stitch pattern for the whole project by knitting a row, alternating knits and purls, and purling a row, which we've just done, and then a row alternating knits and purls again like before. For each row, make sure to work the selvedge stitches, slip and knit the first 2, and knit the last 2. It's a reversible 4-row repeat pattern. One side of the fabric are straight knit or purl rows, and the other side alternate knits and purls, always starting and ending with a knit stitch. When you're happy with the length of your swatch or placemat, skip to this timestamp to finish your project with a cast-off that complements the cast-on, selvedges, and stitch pattern. If you're up for the next challenge, let's change it up a bit to the granite linen stitch. Rather than a knit purl row, we'll slip every other stitch. So after the purl row, you can see the knit-looking stitches on this side. Work the selvedge by slipping and knitting 1 stitch. The stitch pattern for this row is knit, move the yarn to the front, and slip the next stitch purlwise. Move the yarn to the back and knit. Continue alternating knits and slip purlwise with yarn in front, ending with a knit and 2 stitches remaining on the left needle. So the granite stitch, or even better, the granite linen stitch for the placemat, because the purls give the fabric a very textured look and feel. And the stitch pattern has squares, so you can knit the placemat widthwise or lengthwise, and with or without a border. Knit the last 2 selvedge stitches. Turn your work, slip the first stitch, and knit a row straight. Now when you turn the work again, you can see the purl bumps on the other side. The next row is a slip stitch row. Work the selvedge, slip and knit. With the yarn in back, slip the first stitch purlwise. Move the yarn to the front and purl a stitch. Yarn in the back and slip, yarn in the front and purl. Continue alternating slip purlwise with yarn in back and purl stitches until you have 2 stitches remaining on the left needle. One of the things I like best about this pattern is that even though it's a 4-row repeat, it is in fact reversible, because it makes use of the fact that the purl stitches are the reverse of the knit stitches, and the slip purlwise with yarn in front on a knit-looking stitch is the reverse of a slip purlwise with yarn in back on a stitch. Knit the last 2 selvedge stitches. Turn the work, slip the first stitch, knit 1, and purl across to the last 2 stitches. Knit the last 2 stitches. Like the simpler granite stitch, the granite linen stitch is a reversible 4-row repeat, where one side of the fabric has straight knits or purl rows, and one side of the fabric has the linen stitch row, either knit slip or slip purl. You can mark one side of the fabric to help you keep track. Here's a diagram of the linen side. For the straight knit or purl side, the diagram shows how it looks, so that knits on the other side look like purls on this side, and the purls on the other side look like knits on this side. The linen stitch after the knit row that looks like purls on this side are worked slip purlwise with yarn in back and purl, followed by the purl row. The linen stitch after the purl row that look like knit stitches on this side are worked knit, slip purlwise with yarn in front. If you make a mistake on a whole row and you don't notice for a few rows, then you can carefully pull your needles out and frog back to the straight knit or purl row and remount each stitch. Make sure to mount each stitch the same as before, with the right leg in front and the stitch opening to the left. When your swatch or project is almost the desired length, you can add an easier granite repeat to match the beginning. After a purl row, work the 2 selvedge stitches, then alternate knits and purls until there are 3 stitches left, and knit the last 3 stitches. And the last row is a knit row. Cast off edge matches the crochet cast on because it has the same structure as a single crochet stitch. Slip the first stitch, knit the next stitch, put both stitches back on the left hand needle, tip to tip. Knit the stitches together through the back loop. Make sure not to work these stitches too loosely or the edge will flare and ripple. Let's do that again. Knit the next stitch, slip both stitches back, and knit them through the back loop. The cast on and the cast off and the selvedges match, and the knit stitch just inside the slip outside stitch makes a nice border and matches the knit purl row of the simple granite stitch. You have 2 stitches left on the needle. Knit them together for the last stitch. Cut the end with a tail and carefully pull the tail through. To make the full placemat, you can use this swatch to determine how many stitches you need. My swatch is 10 centimeters wide with 19 stitches. So if I want my placemat to be 30 centimeters wide, then I need about 3 times as many stitches. So 57 or 59. Now that you've made your swatch, you can repeat the same process for the bigger placemat without the basic granite stitch edges. If you're up for a bit of extra challenge, you can add a crochet edge to your placemat. Here I've used 5 chain stitches, skipped a stitch, and single crocheted into the next stitch. If you're already a crocheter, you can experiment with different edges to make each placemat unique.
If you've enjoyed knitting your awesome basic creation with me, please feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel to find more videos on reversible stitch patterns and projects, including the other videos in this 5-part series. Each video showcases projects of various sizes and provides full instructions for a different cast-on, stitch pattern, special stitch combination, selvedge, and cast-off that all work together to make a beautiful reversible project. Feel free to leave a comment if you have questions or ideas for more awesome reversible knitting. And remember, knitting is a great way to add your own character to your home.